morning and welcome to Race Industry Now, the weekly webinar series from EPARTRADE, presented to you by ARP, Performance Plus Global Logistics, Peak, Shop Monkey, and Fifth Third Bank Motorsport. Thank you for being with us today. I am Francisque Savignan, the founder and CEO of EPARTRADE, the global platform for the performance and racing industry. This is episode 328, and we're going to be talking electronics with FuelTech. This morning with me are Judy Keane, the co-founder of EPARTRADE, and our wonderful host, Mr. Brad Gilly. Judy?
Thank you, Francisque, and thank you everybody for joining us today. We have a huge audience and it's exciting to start this season. I hope you've all noticed we have three strong, powerful racing brands here. We have Fifth Third Bank Motorsports, Old World Industries, which we all know as Peak Performance, and Shop Monkey. So they've joined ARP and Performance Plus Global. They believe in this platform and the direction we're going online and these race tech webinars. So, Mr. Brad?
Well, welcome, and thrilled to be back doing this and looking forward to today for sure, as well as a full year of Race Industry Now. It's going to be fun. So Judy, Francis, thank you so much, and we'll go ahead and just dive right in because boy, we do have a fun one here today, which I'm looking forward to. But today's topic, Vision FT and the future of race electronics by FuelTech. And it looks like he's coming on board right now. Luis De Leon, the technical director and COO of FuelTech, and so many great things to talk about, especially when it comes to engine management systems and everything that we're going to be talking about. So, Luis, welcome. We appreciate it. Before we really get started, I do want to remind folks that if you're on the webinar and if you have a question for Luis about what we're talking about here today, you can just type it into the chat. I already see people from Canada, from Puerto Rico joining us, and as Judy mentioned, this is going to be a big one here today. So hope everything is going well for you today, Luis. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Better now, I would say.
I get it. Well, let's talk about Vision FT. And my gosh, what you guys just announced at the PRI show with the FT700 and some of the new innovations and technology in your products, it really just seems incredible. So give us a bit of an overview of what we're going to be talking about here today.
Well, for starters, like FuelTech as a technology company, right? Like we are heavily involved with automotive, right? But it's pretty much technology. So we're not much different from other technology companies. That was our primary goal as always. So today, I would like to talk about Vision FT as our new generation. So a new generation of FuelTech electronics. And just like you said, we started this new generation with the announcement of the FT700 and 700 Plus back at PRI. So PRI was a great show, and we thought it was a good and pretty much perfect platform to try to expose, to try to announce, to show to people a little bit, because there's a lot more to come, but like a little bit from what we think that race electronics should go towards. So like the 700 and the Vision, it starts more like a new tendency from our understanding for electronics for any kind of race application. It could be water sports, it can be circuit racing, it could be mud racing. We talk about racing, we talk about electronics. This is pretty much like where we're aiming to.
Yeah, well, it's really neat. So give us an overview. Like you mentioned, the 700 and the 700 Plus, just two incredible pieces of technology with everything, not only that you announced that they have to offer now, but not just throughout 2023, 24, 25, a lot of different things can be added to the platform as well. So what is it? What did you announce?
Well, I'm going to start with this. Like FuelTech always had that concept of merging somewhat some kind of dashboard, some kind of joystick, let me say, or keyboard, and ECU, right? So some kind of electronic control unit that the user do not have to have a laptop, do not have to have a separate cable, do not have to have some kind of engineer with you to be able to use that electronic. So we always aim to have easy to use, quick to use, simple to use electronic for any kind of race application. That start all the way back in the past with like our first ECU that would be like our Race Pro and stuff like that. That was a 16 by 2 line, 16 digits by 2 lines with 4 buttons that you could navigate through the system. So fast forward to today, with the 700 is pretty much the same concept applied to technologies that we have today. So today, technology allows us to have larger screens, right? It allows us to have touch screens. And our existing line, the FT600, it's highly successful on racing, mostly because of that. It kept the same recipe. It's a compact unit that concentrate all the brains of the car. So some other companies, some other approaches don't do that. They kind of separate the brains along the vehicle, and they sometimes have more stuff on one unit, but there's no single box that can do everything on a vehicle without becoming bulky, expensive, hard to maintenance. So what we try to do, as always, is the brain is one piece. The thing is, why not have the dashboard with the brain? Because the dashboard is actually a simple piece, right? So we always do that. The brain of the vehicle, or whatever kind of a vehicle we talk about, and the interface with the user, the dashboard, is one piece. That's our first achievement. With the 700, we go a little bit forward because now we're adding a lot of stuff that we didn't have on the previous generation, our actual generation, where the unit have more communication. So it is cross-platform. The new generation is cross-platform. And when I say that, now you can use on PC base, Mac base, Android base, and you actually can communicate with a unit through your cell phone, your tablet, your computer, wired or wireless, right? So we're trying to go towards a generation of electronics where the driver, yes, the driver can always interact with the ECU, but also the crew chief, the tuner, can interact with the system quicker, right? Quicker, simpler. So now with this new generation, the crew chief, the tuner, is able to do real-time changes through an app on the cell phone or a tablet while the car is about to stage, about to do a lap, or is stopped by the pits. You know, you don't have to have a cable, you don't have to do something else. You still can do it, don't get me wrong. But we do think that as everything progress towards wireless, this is kind of natural that we should be doing. And we invested a lot of time on have like a really good, quick and effective cryptography on the communication of it. So you can have several users of the 700, one next to another, and there will be no problem between them accessing someone else's file or someone else's car.
Yeah, I like it, especially if you go to the page on the FuelTech website talking about, you know, the levels of encrypted data and everything like that. But the fact that it's Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and everything you can do. And like you mentioned, the brains are with the screen. Is this, Luis, why we're calling it a VCU instead of maybe an ECU?
Yes, because like when we talk about brains, it's like the thinking, right? Like what is thinking, what is trying to do something. And the more a system can do, the more useful it becomes, right? And naturally, stop only doing the engine, right? So now the system actually manipulate the whole vehicle. That's where we go with that different explanation about the box. And now the box becomes a VCU, so it's a vehicle controller. So this new platform has so many resources that are not even unlocked at this point, but I can guarantee you that system allows you to manipulate the whole vehicle. So when I mean the whole vehicle is transmission, right? Fuel, timing, because we talk about a combustion engine, but it also can control electric motors. So if you have an electric vehicle, that unit can do that. Or if you have a hybrid where you can use the electric motor, I don't know, to drive around the pits or to have a push to pass button on a straightaway. So the unit start controlling more stuff at the same time to become a vehicle controller. The dashboard itself now since it's larger and it is advanced technology, allows you to run more stuff on the same dashboard. So the unit has built-in inputs for audio and video. So you can run a backup camera, nose camera, onboard camera, and that also can be translated to the dashboard, not just logging, not just recording for the afterwards analysis of what happened, but in real time. So what if the driver can access a backup camera during the race on a road racing setup, where he can have a button on the steering wheel to see, what's going on there. So yes, there are systems today that allows you to do that separate. Now we're trying to build into the system, right? So the system will allow to do more at once, and that's why the VCU naming.
This is incredible. I do want to remind anyone viewing today, if you have a question, you can type it into the chat. And it's been great to see people giving themselves shout outs from everywhere they're from France to Spain to Washington to Florida, and really just all over the world. So this is great. Luis, one of the really interesting things as well, let's just say I've been a customer of FuelTech, and if I had a 600 series, now that the new 700 series is coming out and I wanted to upgrade, you guys have made that pretty simple to do so, right? As far as the harness goes?
Yes, sir. So this is something that we always did between generations. When we started our actual generation, the Power FT, we also made that like on an easy translation for a user from the older ones, the FT 350, the 400, stuff like that. So the 600 to the 700 is not different. The connector family is the same, right? So first of all, the connector family is the same. Second of all, the 600 have two main connectors on the back. And those two connectors are the same main connectors on the 700. So right now, the 700 can be swapped into a vehicle that had the 600 in literally minutes, right? And all the extra features either are software related that is straight up can start using, or if it requires an extra wiring, it doesn't prevent the car to already go. Right, so you can just add to the wiring of the vehicle whatever else you're going to be adding to the system. If you come from a 550 or a 450, since they're the same connectors, the pins are the same. So you just need to change the housing and use the same pins. So you could have a 450, a 550, or a 600, and after acquiring a 700, have the swap between them in a matter of hours, right? The tune-up itself, we also have conversion systems where, I have, this is my tune-up from a 600, the car runs really well. There will be a conversion system where you can implement this to the new software. The 700 we just spoke, being cross-platform, have a complete new software, right? So that software that's cross-platform, from your PC to your Apple to your S700, it's the same. So it is not the same one from the previous generation. So that would be like an update, but the whole approach is the same. So the way that the software shows up to the user is similar. We change colors, we add a lot of stuff, but like if you are a FuelTech customer, when you see the software for the 700, it's pretty intuitive. You can just go straight out and keep doing what you're doing and just find, now I can do this. Now I can do that at the same time. You can start adding stuff that you didn't have.
Yeah, that's really neat. And again, just all the features that it has and that you're building into it as well. I do want to get to a couple of questions from the chat, and I know there's some other areas that we're going to talk about with this as well. But one of them comes from Chris Law. It says, you say the 700 series will record from multiple camera inputs. Will it also log GPS position and driver inputs? Is that data all reviewable alongside engine data post-race in one software?
That is correct. So the question that he made is actually pretty important. As today, we don't have any kind of GPS input on an existing line, right? We don't have video input on an existing line. Those items now present on the new generation, they are not just real-time analysis for some kind of interaction with the driver to understand something that's happening, but they also record their own system for post-analysis. The onboard memory with the 700, it's 64 gigabytes. So it pretty much has infinite possibilities of recording. It depends on how much you want to record and what kind of stuff of recording you want to do, but you can record pretty much everything that's going on the unit, including audio, including video, and that will always be framed out on the same time life of everything else. So you will be able to watch what happened through the cameras, to listen to the microphone, and all the sensors on the engine or on the vehicle. So you can see the chassis doing something, the driver doing something, the engine doing something, and also correlate with the image, right? So most of the systems today, you need to have separate softwares to try to analyze that. Now we're trying to bring it back to the same one, and you can see everything at the same time, at the same pace, including really high speed sensing. So we have 8 channels at 400 kilohertz, so 400 thousandths of a second, to try to analyze mostly combustion pressure. So this is something that I do believe is somewhat new on aftermarket ECUs, where you can do up to 8 sensors live. So the system could do even live adjustments based on combustion pressure. So, so again, you can record, right? You can analyze for later. And something that's also new in this unit, you can see logging on the screen of the ECU. So before you'd have to download the data, put on a laptop, try to see what is understanding. Now you could actually, after you do a recording, go on the screen of the ECU, you're like, oh, let me see this log. And you can see what happened on the screen of the ECU. So we're trying again to push a little bit further the boundary where if there is a point where laptops, cell phones, tablets are not really useful for you doing, you don't have to. Everything can be done on that ECU.
Wow. And you mentioned the 64 gig, you know, which should be plenty for a racing event, whatever it might be. But you could also expand that as well if you wanted through USB. Is that right?
Yes, yes. So like the onboard memory, as we talked, was 64 gigs, but the unit also are able to try to send out data through USB. The speed's not the same, so not necessarily going to be able to do the same quality of video or something like that on real time, but for sure you will be able to expand the memory if you need, if you want, throughout a USB connection. The ECU have USB-C ports back and front. So you can easily connect to the ECU from the front or from the back, or on the back, you can have like some kind of external device of storage connected to the system at all times.
Mm-hmm. Here's another question. I think you somewhat answered this, but I'll go ahead and ask it to you as it was asked here on the chat. Curious on the Wi-Fi. Is it self-contained or does it need external data to work? Say if the laptop only has a Wi-Fi connection.
So Wi-Fi, it's pretty much wireless connection, right? It's like Ethernet through wireless. So Wi-Fi is just the communication between the unit and something else, right? We do have some like cool products that will be able to communicate through Wi-Fi later. But like at the first moment, the Wi-Fi will be pretty much the communication between the ECU and a computer, not access to internet, let me say. It's straight from there. But we do have plans on making some stuff that will allow the ECU to communicate real time with Ethernet and maybe have like some cloud-based data storage.
Oh, wow. That's really neat. All right. Let's see. The all right. The FT700 says it can support electric motor and inverter controls. Will we see EV management kits from FuelTech soon? So let's talk about electronic vehicles, Luis.
Well, I cannot say yes, but I cannot say no, right? So as the system is able to manipulate the inverter and to control BMS, so like battery management systems, and with the inverter control a motor, yes, the system will be able to hybridize a car or something like that. And the kits is a little bit tricky because like we work with performance, right? So what kind of motor we're talking about, what kind of package we're talking about. So we've been working on several partnerships with different companies that already manufacture the motor, the inverter, the BMS, the battery pack. So we can try to provide in the near future the solutions that we see that are more universal for. Maybe try to spin a compressor, a blower on a car instead of using the belt or the gear drive. Maybe adding a motor to the output shaft of the transmission to help out with power straight to the drive shaft. But like we will see that in the near future for sure.
Oh, that is fantastic. All right. Will this support CAN broadcasting to allow OEM integration to modern vehicle where power steering, DSC, ABS is needed to remain as OEM?
Okay, so we have more than one CAM network on the 700, and different from the 600, the 700 will be a little bit more open. It will allow the user to write their own coding or use different coding from different networks to try to manipulate other products that require CAN-based conversation, right? So I wouldn't say yes to the answer, but I wouldn't say no either. It will depend on how the user wants to use the CAM network. So the possibilities are pretty broad, and will depend on what kind of product they want to manage and what kind of knowledge the user have towards trying to communicate through CAN.
That's very, very interesting. All right, let's see. We've got another one here. There are people who want to be able to watch Netflix or something else on the system while they're, working on their cars or doing other things like that.
Well, I cannot say no either to that one, because like we already even discussed about trying to integrate the sound system of a car, right, to the platform, because honestly, why not, right? As most of people know, on the Power FT line, we actually have what some people call a game, but I take that pretty serious, where we simulate the drag racing tree, right, on the ECU. So the driver inside the car can change the screen of the ECU to a tree, like a drag racing tree, and he can practice his staging, his reaction time straight on the ECU. It makes it easier because it's the same environment. Sometimes he's on the staging lanes, waiting to be called to crank up the car and do something, and they can spend those minutes trying to focus on their attitude inside the car, how to behave with the tree, and practice the release of the trans brake, the two-step. The 700 opens a door to more stuff. I don't know, maybe games, maybe, a different practice tree. I'm not sure. And that's what I'm saying. Like this platform, it's such extensive possibilities that we see with it. Some of the stuff we cannot say no because we don't know how far can we go with it. But for sure, those cool ideas may be implemented in the future.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note, Luis, and I'll let you maybe expand on this just a little bit. This was just announced at PRI. You guys are expecting to put this out and release it. There's a lot coming here in 2023, but also beyond in 24 and 25. What can we expect with the release and everything? What can you tell us about what's coming out immediately?
So the first one was the ECUs, right? We actually preparing like a new release for next week. So like I can't tell exactly what it is, but like next week we're gonna have like a surprise. And for the Vision platform, the 700 are pretty much because there are two, the 700, 700 plus. They're the units from the top of the line for now, right? But as we have today we have the 550, the 550 Lite without a screen, and 600, the 450. The new line of products, the Vision FT, we also have that kind of different levels. So we will have smaller ECUs and ECUs without dashboards, because in the end, sometimes the application require no dashboard or something like that. And since this previous generation will have 4 ECUs, we may be looking to have more options than only just 4. And being the new platform, most of the features will be shared. So they will be cross-platform. You will allow a bunch of stuff to happen. The tune-up will be pretty much like a cross-reference between all the ECUs, but the ECUs will change screen size, inputs, outputs, capabilities, how much can you handle at the same time, just like the Power FT line.
Yeah, and by the way, on the FuelTech website, there's a great comparison chart, starting with the 450 and moving up to, the FT 700 and 700 plus, as far as a lot of the features and different things like that go, which is pretty comprehensive. Another question from the chat, Luis: throttle stop and staging control for index/bracket racing. I know you had talked about some drag racing stuff. Is that something incorporated here?
Yes, like the 600 actually already have that. So the 600, the 550, 450, they already have throttle stop control, delay box. And we always try to work really closely with sanction bodies. So we try to work really close to every single sanction body out there that we have customers racing within, right? So as today, we also have specific firmwares that the user can change on themselves, by their own, to allow to block specific features that class do not allow. And I'm just saying that because bracket racing, it is a type of drag racing that have somewhat rule package specific. So sometimes they call a class box or no box. When they say box, no box, is just like a slang for delay box, allowing the driver to have a delay system where the electronics can manipulate how quick the driver can react to the vehicle or not, right? So we have that. And as today, we have a complete control and delay, including crossover, where the system can be input with the data. What is your ET on a bracket class and what is your opponent ET? And the system can calculate to see what kind of delay has to be done. So the user can choose if he wants to leave on the top bulb, the bottom bulb. Bracket racing is actually pretty complicated for the driver side. I would say it's more complicated than heads-up racing. As the driver interacts with the reaction time, and sometimes even after they leave the line, they will activate other buttons to increase or decrease the delay that they have set previously before the run. And all those systems, all those controls are already present on the PowerFT line, and they are carry over to the Vision FT line.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. There is a question that says, you said the software is very intuitive. Could you show a quick demo and maybe some of the new features? Luis, I don't know if you have anything prepared for that on this right now. I do know there's a great 30-minute video on your FuelTech YouTube page as well that really does a good job of covering the Vision FT.
Yes. Honestly, like right now, I don't think we're going to be able to go over the software and try to explain something really quickly, that people would get it that simple. The software has a lot of details on it, that has a lot of features on it. So it was good that you mentioned. We already have a lot of videos out there on the FuelTech YouTube and Facebook, stuff like that, that you can go over, redo it, see it again, pause, zoom in, zoom out, try to see it. And the software manual for the 700, it's about to be released. So we will have that available in no more than a couple of months, and people will be able to download and see for themselves the difference between. So at PRI, we had the functional units, including cross-platform, on laptops and cell phones, so people could see it. But now, in not long from now, we're gonna have that broadly available, and people can have on their own and check it out what is all about.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Another question, processing speeds. I see there are multiple processors for each function. Is the engine processor faster? So say the drag race features have more resolution when watching the drive shaft.
Well, the processing speed of the existing line, it's blasting fast, I'm gonna tell you that. So the 600, the 550, they're crazy fast. The main problem about those units compared to the 700 is they're not capable of processing some stuff like video, audio, or other features that today we don't have available, like direct injection. So that's the difference between the 700 and the 600. The traction control system that we have today, and we have more than one being employed on the PowerFT line, it is, I can't tell you if it's the fastest out there or not, because like there is no easy way to compare. Most of drag racing, when it happens on a higher level, you can't repeat the run. You can do a run that's close, but you cannot repeat the run. You rely so much on the racetrack, the track changes every 5 minutes. So it's hard to do a comparison between different brands. One thing that I can tell is today, the quickest EFI equipped vehicle uses FuelTech on the 8 mile. So that kind of stuff, I kind of already proved the point about how quick it is. And we have some customers right now that hold their record on the 8 mile, trying to grab the record on quarter mile as well. Quarter mile racing on door slamming and stuff is actually pretty intense. They've been going 530s to the quarter mile on a door car. So it's not that simple feat. Again, you require a perfect track, perfect weather conditions, but like it is tough, and it's tougher than it looks like. But the system is able to handle pretty much any engine from 1 to 12 cylinders, from really low RPM all the way up to about 20,000 RPM. So trying to manipulate the drive shaft doesn't require as much to manipulating the engine itself. So the engine itself requires timing and fuel control to the 10th of a degree over 10, 12 cylinders at over 10,000 RPM. So that's way more information to analyze and to activate an injector or a coil than actually just reading the drive shaft. So the drive shaft is just a byproduct of what the car is trying to do, that the ECU can read and tell the engine to do something else based on their reading.
Okay, had a very detailed answer too. So one of the things that comes with the FT 700 and 700 Plus is volumetric efficiency fuel model. And a question from the chat: will VE fueling become available on the 450, 550, and 600?
I'm not really sure, going to be honest. Okay, so the Power FT platform is pretty much maxed out, right? So one of the things that we actually been doing, and I think it was really smart from the engineering team, we decreased the onboard tunes that we used to have 5, and now we have 3, to allow more space to be used to different features. The problem is there's only so much you can do, and you also don't want to have an ECU that cannot have at least 3 tune-ups that you can change on the fly. So the VE system, the VE module, requires a lot of tables, a lot of information that may not be able to be added to the existing platform. So that was one of the reasons that made us do the new platform. We got to that time span with the Power FT line that the hardware could not stand anymore. All that input from the users, all the requirement from the tuners, we couldn't squeeze it in anymore. And that's where, like, okay, we're going to need to start fresh and do a new engine block here that can fit more cylinders, and then we can try to squeeze more boost and make more power.
Yeah, I can tell you this, by the way, Luis, this is like one of the most active chats we've had in a while, which is great. A lot of questions coming in. A lot of people are interested. Carlos Nader wanted to know, what about alternator control and voltage settings and alternator load settings?
Yes. So once again, this goes hand to hand what we just spoke about. The existing line has its limits about memory and how much can you do at the same time. We always want to make sure that the unit will not slow down by any means. Right, so you just can't squeeze in more stuff. At some point, it's going to slow down. Think about your cell phone. You buy a brand new, you don't have any app on it, and it's fast. It's just blasting fast. 1 year, 2 years in, you have a lot of photos, videos, and new apps and stuff, and sometimes it does slows down, right? So that's acceptable on a cell phone. That is not acceptable on an ECU or a VCU, because that can cause damage either to the engine or to the performance of the vehicle. So we always really careful about what we do to the ECU to keep up. So the ECU is capable of what we're trying to do. The existing line can do much more. The new line can't. And when we say about this, they can. Some of the features that you guys see is on the list of the 700 is because we already prepared that for you guys. So it's ready. But more likely, if it is not on the list, it is still possible to be done. So alternator control, for sure, it may not be available on the very first release of the product when you buy the first unit, but just like the Power FT, the 700 will suffer with several updates through its life, adding new features besides those features that the user can build itself. Something that the existing platform don't have, the new one have, where the user can tell, oh, I want one output that it is a duty cycle based on the TPS input, and it's gonna run at this frequency, and it's gonna do this if the battery voltage goes up and down. So even if the feature is not implemented when we release the unit, he's still gonna be able to do something if he knows the logics behind necessary to manipulate the alternator that he has.
Interesting. And well, speaking of updates, another question says, I came in late, so this might have been answered. How much longer will we see continued updates to the Power FT systems and new features added, or will the R&D be focused more on the new Vision series?
The Power FT will still receive updates, but it's going to be as much as we can do with the unit. At the point that the unit's not capable of withstand more updates that doesn't overload the system, we're going to keep doing. We're not going to stop doing it. The only thing that I must tell, and we already spoke about it, it's not far from done. So we won't be able to do another 10, 15 updates on the unit. It's just not feasible. We're going to get to the point where there's nothing else we can do. As some of the customers already know, the very first unit that was kind of on that platform, the Power FT, was the FT500. That unit already didn't receive the updates that a 600 have, just because that hardware is not the same. So at some point, that's going to happen to the 600, 550, 450. There's not a specific when, but it will come at some point.
Okay. And as far as moving forward, you talked about the release coming up here very soon, and we talked about some of the differences between the 700 and the other units. Luis, is there anything that we haven't really covered here that you feel is pretty important to what people want to know about this?
It's tough to measure, right? Because like at this point, we do see that all the stuff that we wanted to do in the existing line and we couldn't do for whatever reason, the 700 will open the door to allow us to do it, right? So some of the stuff we don't even understand properly. So going back to the high-speed data acquisition, we are not 100% sure what can be done because some of the stuff is just uncharted territory. We already work with different engine builders and different platforms trying to do some analysis on some vehicles that you don't have much literature about it. Drag racing mostly, it is a style of racing that FuelTech have been heavily involved, mostly because it's not as limited as road racing, right? The rule package is way broad, and the engine builder, the tuner, the crew chief, they can have more being done between seasons. They are not so held back to have the competitive, leaving to the driver to decide at the track. Drag racing has way more background racing than road racing once you go into competition. Road racing requires a really good driver, right? And today we have so many good drivers that it's a minimal difference. We talk about thousands of a second or hundreds of a second over a minute, right? Over a minute. And that involves like driving, a human being making decisions along a lap. Drag racing is a little bit different. Yes, there is drivers that are better than other ones, but the driver doesn't do as much. The driver doesn't have so much input to what the car is going to do along the run. The driver pretty much will do a good reaction time and know to react to something that happens out of the ordinary. But on a really good lap, the driver doesn't do much. Everything is done on a preset feature that the crew chief, the tuner, decided to do. So that's where we are trying to open that, having the new platform with larger chances of implementing stuff that today people may not even thought about it, right? So trying to do a timing closed loop over combustion pressure. This is something that it may be possible, we can guarantee, because now we're gonna need to learn how can we do that sensor on the motor? How can we make the sensor survive under 5,000 horsepower? Like some of the stuff will require third parties companies that do the sensor, that do the heads, the blocks, to try to work with them, to try to find a solution for something that today is just an idea.
Yeah. A couple other quick questions for you, Luis. Generic PWM tables controlling, say, water pumps and cooling fans at 0 RPM to cool the car down in the pits.
Yes. So the new platform, by having like those tables where the user can build their own, they will be able to. But again, we also work with a lot of sanctioned bodies. And if you are running a car on a specific class, you won't be able to have a firmware where you can design your own. Like you have to run a firmware that the sanction body approve you to use. So for those applications, that's where we're going to implement those features. Through customer feedback, they can actually now on the new platform design a feature, explain to us what is the feature, how they use, what is the point of it, and we could implement and give it back to all the customers and maybe add it to a firmware that's locked, so they can use that on a locked firmware for a specific class.
Any PDM coming out one day?
That's kind of top secret. It's kind of hard to talk about it.
Good enough. We'll leave it at that. And then another question, knock control.
Yes. So our actual line, we decided to go away from knock control for the reason of most of drag racing is really tough to understand, right? The motor is so noisy, it's under such a stress that it's really hard to understand what is knock, what is not knock. The new platform has a couple different approaches where we will be able to allow the user to have somewhat knock control. I believe that won't be ready by the first generation of the software for the 700, but it will be available later on.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. Luis, what you guys have designed, and obviously the interest in it is really incredible. I would definitely encourage people to, find FuelTech through the EPARTRADE website. Go check out your YouTube page and everything else that you have. It's very innovative, and I think the great thing, especially in reading the release about it and what you guys had brought up when you first introduced this, is how this is just going to continue to grow, not just this year with the release, but beyond 2024, 2025, and so on.
Yeah, so like the 700, going back to the 700, we're trying to unite more stuff, right? Reunite, compact more stuff on the same box, but keeping the brains on it, right? So like the PDM question, a power distribution module, it is a module that contains a lot of current and voltage. Like there's a lot of electric stuff happening on the thing, trying to make it simple, and people don't realize, but that's really similar to like a lot of fuel flow throughout somewhere. You want to route that the right way. You don't want to have fuel flow running through your exhaust. You want your fuel flow to running on the colder side of the motor, where you can check for leaks and stuff like that. So the FT600 and the 700, they share something where the 600 is better, where the ECU has the capabilities of run low current stuff straight to the ECU. So I could even say that the 600 already is somewhat a small PDM where you cannot run really high current stuff. You're not going to run your starter to the ECU, but you can run solenoids on your transmission, you can run high impedance injector, you can run solenoids for a boost controller, you can run your electronic throttle body, everything without any kind of separate solid state relay or separate relay. The 700 adds more to that. It has even more outputs capable of running low current. So low current, we talk about 5 to 10 amps each. So you would have to have, as today, a PDM just for the really high current stuff, like feeding power to coils, feeding power to all the injectors. But that kind of stuff, it's actually better to not be incorporated really close to the brains, because that high current, that voltage switching may trigger interference, may trigger noise. And we're talking about a unit that has a built-in GPS system where you just connect the cable from the antenna, but the module is there. You don't want to have any kind of interference with your Wi-Fi communication for your crew to try to adjust something on the starting line. So this is one of the reasons. This is a question that sometimes we get to receive at the track, why we don't have low impedance, high current injector drivers built in the ECU. And that's one of the reasons. We try to keep everything close to the brains at a lower current, lower voltage. Every single time we have a higher voltage, high current, like our ignition system, the FT Spark, we have a separate box that can stay closer to whatever solenoid or actuator that you are using that require the voltage. So FT Spark is a unit that have capacitors that go for over 400 volts and discharge like crazy high, that unit we recommend to stay closer to the coils. So you have a smaller and easier path to flow all that current. And the ECU keeps with everything that's lower current and requires speed and precise management that only the brains and the ECU can do it.
Okay, maybe someone answer this, but the question says, will hardware electronics PDM still work with the 700?
Yeah, so like I believe that's a different brand, right? And what we're doing is the 700 has an open CAN protocol, right? So you still have FuelTech protocol because our products run on our proprietary protocol, but other brands have their own proprietary protocol or they have an open protocol. So the 700 opens the window for that. If you have a different brand, PDM, you really want to use a PDM, FuelTech didn't release our secret PDM, and you want to use that brand, it's fine. If that product have their open CAN telling what is the code required to trigger a channel or to read the channel from them, the 700 brings this to the table, something that we don't have today. Our existing platform don't have, the new one will.
I look forward to the top secret FuelTech PDM and see what goes on with that. But let's see. Is the FuelTech education being updated for the new electric vehicle features added to the new 700 line, or is the FT education, I should say, being updated? The FT
yeah.
series?
So like for people that don't know, FT education is what we call our training sessions, training classes. We started in the previous year. We had a couple here and there, but it's something that we do really strong in South America. And last year was a great year for FT education. We started doing several trainings. And this year, our goal is to have no less than 2 a month. So our facility, it's near Atlanta. So it's a really easy place to go to. There's a lot of places around. And we're really happy to receive new customers, previous customers, existing customers here at our facility to try to have a really good knowledge exchange, I would say, because we have from the very beginner user that don't even have a FuelTech yet, all the way to a world champion that already used FuelTech for some months. They all come here on groups and we talk about how to use, how's the best way to use this feature, that feature, or whatever. So the 700 is not part of the training yet because the unit's not available. As the unit becomes available in the following months, we also adding that to the training, and we will still have some separation. So the trainings for this year, we will have different IDs. We will keep the ones that we already have, and we will start different trainings that are more focused on specifics, either a combination like nitrous, nitromethane, gasoline on turbo, alcohol supercharging, try to explain more in depth, and also power FT line, vision FT line, because for some extent, they are not exactly the same.
Well, Luis, I have to say, it's very impressive, your knowledge of every single question that's come through here today. And I know a lot of people on the chat are impressed as well. So, congratulations on the innovations that FuelTech continues to make. And we really look forward to the new products and the updates that continue to come out. And most of all, thanks for giving us time here today. I would encourage people who had some questions that might have gone unanswered due to time to check out what you guys have on the website and the YouTube page.
Well, thank you guys so much to allow us to be part of this amazing platform of yours, and it gives a little bit of time for us to try to explain a little bit about FuelTech and what we're trying to do.
Well, thank you, Luis. You did a brilliant job, and what a brilliant company. I mean, it's built by racers for racers. It's really what this industry is all about. And I've had the privilege of knowing FuelTech for many, many years. And so I've been, watching their growth, and it's been amazing. And you listen to Luis and you understand why. I mean, simple as that. They're very clever, they're racers, and they understand the market, and they're brilliant. So thank you so much for being with us today. This webinar has been recorded. It will be posted on the EPARTRADE platform later today. We just pushed the 700 back on the homepage of the EPARTRADE platform right now, and we're going to feature you also in the newsletter tomorrow. We will be back next Wednesday. We're going to be talking CFD of performance engines with Engine Sim. So thank you very much for being with us today. Let's go racing, and we'll see you live next week. Bye-bye.
EPARTRADE is a digital platform that we've created basically to make life easier in the business community of auto racing.
EPARTRADE, there is no e-commerce. It's literally a connection just like at a trade show. So now, any time of the year, a buyer could reach out to a supplier.
When you see a product that you're interested in, all you need to do is click on request more information, and then from there, it is forwarded directly to the buyer or to the supplier.
EPARTRADE really eliminates having to travel, closing down your shop. Now you have a place to showcase globally your racing product and technology.
Land speed record holder George Poteet's Speed Demon rocketed 481 miles per hour at the Bonneville Salt Flats. You don't go that fast without ARP fasteners.
There is no way that we could go the speed that we've gone, the number of times we've gone, with a lesser quality bolt than ARP supplies to us. And we absolutely wouldn't be where we were today if it weren't for ARP.
When failure is not an option, it's ARP-bolts.com.
We're Performance Plus Global Logistics. Our team of dedicated performance industry and logistics experts get valuable cars and components to the track on time in top condition. We provide expedited logistics solutions for the performance industry using direct routes instead of deferred options, and communicate all necessary information to the appropriate resources to meet regulations and ensure a smooth transit and secure delivery, both domestically and internationally. And we exceed customer expectations by providing best-in-class service with an efficient and cost-effective system in place. Contact us today to book your next shipment.
You work as hard as your truck, and you have no time for downtime. That's why more truck owners trust Blue Def, America's #1 diesel exhaust fluid brand. Each batch is guaranteed pure, so you can avoid costly repairs caused by inferior DEF. Demand America's best for your truck with Blue Def and Blue Def Platinum. Put trust in your truck.
My name is Chadron Sisson. I'm one of the owners of Electrified Garage. So the Shop Monkey software is great since we have the multiple locations. We can dive into each other's location and help out with appointment taking, inventory, customer communication. I can jump into Florida and help out and make an appointment down there, and vice versa. They can make appointments down there for us up here. And then by using our inventory, they can see if we have the parts, and they can get the parts ordered before the customer even comes up here.